Guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson football channel for not a Chelsea news video. Not really, it kind of is. Chelsea Fans React, a series where I take a look at you guys' comments and then I address some of the topics of interest within the comments below. It's kind of something that I've seen quite a bit, be it on Twitter, Instagram comments. You know, I like to always comment on the Chelsea posts and you guys get back to me sometimes with your thoughts on what I've said, even if you agree or disagree. And today we're going to be talking about both Christian Pulisic and HAKIM ZIYECH and what has happened to them. You know, there seems to always be a big outrage from, well, I mean, it's calling the kettle black really from me, but every time something or somebody goes through a bad run of form in football, there is this thing nowadays called the freedom of speech on social media where it really enhances, particularly as somebody who consumes a lot of football content on social media. I see how the spirals escalate so quickly when a player's going through a bad run of form compared to when I grew up watching football and there wasn't these platforms to exacerbate a situation. So, Christian Pulisic I've seen come under a lot of stick, and HAKIM ZIYECH, I think particularly after last night's display, rightly so, is coming under a lot of stick as well. We're going to start off first of all by talking about HAKIM ZIYECH, then we're going to move into Captain America himself, Christian Pulisic. Now, there is the debate with HAKIM ZIYECH about, you know, how much time do you give a player to settle into the Premier League? Christian Pulisic, when he came into the Premier League last season, if we compare the two, he didn't necessarily hit the ground running, but as soon as the restart happened, he was above and beyond Chelsea's best player in the side. You could also argue, if we look at it, that Pulisic came from a stronger league than the Eredivisie, which is where HAKIM ZIYECH came from. So maybe, which is something I mentioned in my previous Chelsea news video earlier on today, if you haven't seen that yet, be sure to go and check it out. I mentioned that the Eredivisie might just be too big of a step to expect HAKIM ZIYECH to actually be playing at that level week in, week out. I know we saw him play at a very high level for Ajax in the Champions League in a very successful team, but that is, you know, every once in a while, as opposed to playing these Premier League games that come through thick and fast, and it's a very physical league. You know, a lot of the teams in the lower echelons of the table, they give a real good fight every single game. Nothing's a walkover anymore. So that time to adapt, I certainly feel as though that's what we're experiencing at this moment in time with HAKIM ZIYECH. And I also think with Frank Lampard and, you know, this 4-3-3 and not having too much emphasis, on getting the ball out to the wings, I think one of the key elements of HAKIM ZIYECH's game that I always loved watching from him at Ajax is how he was able to roam around. You know, sometimes he drops deep, he gets the ball to then play a long pass. We don't see anywhere near enough of that in a Chelsea shirt, and I think in the early stages of this season, with Frank Lampard, we were playing the ball so far out wide all the time. It was get it to ZIYECH, cross it. Get it to Pulisic, cross it, or Hudson-Odoi, whoever was out on the wing. It was so emphasised around that, you know, HAKIM ZIYECH didn't have this freedom to run around, to get involved on the ball in different positions that were not necessarily so predictable for the opposition to defend against. So I think the fact that, you know, since Tuchel's come in, we've obviously changed shape and formation as well. It has brought all of these issues with ZIYECH to the surface because he's not really hit the ground running at any points this season. There have been a couple of really good performances and, you know, games where he's changed the game completely with a wonderful pass or a great cross. But I do think he's really struggling to come to terms with A, the managerial shift, and B, how isolated he was becoming in the latter weeks of Frank Lampard's career at Chelsea. So there is another issue with ZIYECH that I want to address, and it is something that I've seen a lot of you guys say as well, and that is that sometimes he just looks a little bit disinterested. And this is, if you look at, you know, the facial expressions of players and the body language of players, which is something that I love to study because I'm big into psychology within football, you look at HAKIM ZIYECH and you could not really be too far wrong if you could say, blimey, doesn't he look a little bit grumpy? Doesn't he look a little bit disinterested? Now, there is something within certain footballers who have this air of arrogance about the brilliance of what they can achieve on a football pitch with the ball at their feet. HAKIM ZIYECH is certainly one of those players. He knows that he can be having a very quiet game. All of a sudden, he gets the ball and it's just like, dink, Next thing you know, something magical comes away from that wicked left foot that he has. And I feel as though sometimes, because of the polar opposites of how brilliant he can be in any given second, and, you know, this can't get me the flipping ball kind of attitude that it seems to be with Ziyech sometimes, I think, you know, the fact that they are so polar opposite makes it, again, just heightened. And I think that the key thing when we think about what's going on with Ziyech at the moment is every single player at any point in their career can go through a bad run of form, a little patch where things aren't going as well as they might have been before, or that we might have expected them to be based off of what we've previously seen from the player. With Ziyech, I certainly feel as though right now it is simply a case of a bad patch of form. The sad thing, which is where I want you guys to come in the comments below, is that with this Thomas Tuchel side, you know, we've got this Jorginho-Kovacic partnership in the middle. We might be going towards a 4-3-3, or we're probably going to be starting with 3 at the back again with wing-backs. Can Hakim Ziyech do that right wing-back role? I don't think Tuchel believes that he can. I think he certainly backs Callum Hudson-Odoi in that position over Ziyech at least. And bringing it back to the video we made earlier today, according to Calcio Mercato, Juventus and Milan are after maybe Ziyech in the summer. We're going to have to wait and see on this one, but let me know your thoughts as to where you think Ziyech fits in within the Tuchel regime in the comments down below. We move into player number 2, who has also come in for a little bit of scrutiny recently, Christian Pulisic, a man who, very injury prone, we know that, but last season, when football was harshly taken away from us, of course, all for good reason, blah, 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 we won't enter that discussion for today, but Christian Pulisic was one of the best players in the Premier League, not just in the Chelsea team when, you know, football restarted again. We saw, you know, the brilliant stuff that footballers did was heightened upon the return of football last season because we missed it, and we're so used to having it available to watch and witness every single day or every couple of days. The kind of form that Christian Pulisic showed upon his return reminded Chelsea what an incredibly exciting prospect the young American is. At the moment, again, I certainly feel as though he's been recovering from other injuries again. We've gone through a change of manager, a change of style. There's been talk that maybe Pulisic might play as more of a false 9 or a second striker, as opposed to playing out of the wing, which could be a way that we see both Hudson-Odoi, Ziyech and Pulisic feature within this Chelsea side. That's also something to maybe question regarding how Pulisic still fits in to the Tuchel regime. However, I do believe it is currently just a bad spell of form. There are still moments, even in the game against Brighton, where Pulisic does make these bursting little runs, these little darts and jinks of pace from one side to the other, and we really do see the quality that he has on the ball. I think the key difference between the Pulisic of the second half of last season and what we've seen at the moment from Christian Pulisic at Chelsea is the confidence to actually have that free roam, whether he's starting on the left wing or not. He can drift inside, demand and command for the ball to be played at his feet. At the moment, I'm seeing more of a passive side of Christian Pulisic's game, and I believe it all ties back in together, that it comes back to the confidence right now the player isn't as high as it maybe was, or that he would like it to be. So as a result of that, he's doing less of these instinctive, intuitive things to get into the right positions to obtain the ball. And then maybe sometimes when he's not, well, when he's on the ball and he loses it, it's because he doesn't necessarily have that sharpness from full recovery from these injuries. So again, I want to know you guys' thoughts in the comments down below regarding Christian Pulisic under Thomas Tuchel. There are some people that are writing Pulisic off, which I think is an absolutely crazy thing to do. I think he's an absolute world-class talent who is going to be one of the brightest players in this Chelsea squad for many years to come. Is it going to be as like a false 9? Is he going to link up and play with Timo Werner? Or will we continue to see Christian Pulisic in the left wing position, be it in a 4-3-3 or on the left side of a 4-2-3-1? Or is Pulisic going to be considered in a Marcus Alonso role at left wing back? Which again, I think is a crazy thought, but you never know. Under Thomas Tuchel, he's certainly got a way that he wants to play, and I think over the next few weeks, particularly with Champions League games coming up, you've got FA Cup quarterfinals, you've got big games in the Premier League as Chelsea look to break into the top 4, we might see some more Tuchel experiments, and we might see some players start to miss out who we would like to either see in the squad or that just a few weeks ago we thought were dead on starters under Frank Lampard. It's a very interesting time right now at Chelsea. There are lots of interesting things happening. I think to conclude this video, I wouldn't be too concerned about the form of both Ziyech and Pulisic yet. Particularly Pulisic. I think Ziyech is maybe slightly more worrying, but I'm not too worried about either of them. I think they're both world-class players who just going through a bad patch of form, which I think is something we all need to accept from players at certain stages within their careers. Thank you guys for watching today. As always with these kind of videos, it's all about what you guys say in the comments. I'll go through and read them all. Love to hear what you guys have to say. Keep the conversation going on the GBFC community in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching. Come on, you Blues.